Talk to you in a three-part session on reaching and keeping the next generation. And I have a real passion about generations, but it didn't start with me. If you go all the way back to the Psalms, and you're familiar with this, I'm sure, if you're in youth ministry, but in Psalm 78, it tells this, the Psalm of Asaph: "Give ear, my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings from old, things that we have heard and known, that our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done." We have an honor, a responsibility, an obligation, really, to pass down the wonderful acts of God, who God is, what he has done ultimately in Christ, to the generations after us. And so I want to talk to you, first session, about a kind of a 40,000, 30,000 viewpoint, an airplane view, big picture of ministry today and the generations we're facing, Generation Z and Gen Alpha in particular. Several points. Number one, you minister to a world where understanding generations matters. I don't think you can minister well to a coming generation without knowing something about them. Now, let me imagine a pendulum, if you will, and don't swing the pendulum too far over here or too far over there. Some swing the pendulum so far they say, look, let's make everything about generations. And we basically want to build our ministries and build our parenting and everything around the latest trends of this generation. No. A 14-year-old today has more in common with a 14-year-old in the Middle Ages than they have not in common. They have some of the same basic needs. They have some of the same basic loves. They have and they all have the same need of Christ and to know Christ and to walk with Christ. And so there's so many things in common with young people. Every generation of young people has a certain amount of idealism and are willing to take risk more than people who get older, and so on. So don't make everything about generations, but then don't swing the pendulum so far over here that you say, it doesn't matter, just teach the Bible. Just teach the Bible. Don't worry about this generational stuff. Well, if you don't know the impact of TikTok on a 15-year-old, I was substitute teaching recently. I don't do that anymore, but I did it for a while just because I love young people. And it was funny. Anytime the young people, and they loved it because I'm a grandpa and that kind of thing. But anytime they'd have a little bit of break, they'd say, "Can we make a TikTok?" And I said, as long as I'm not in it, yeah. Man, that's all they want to do in their spare time is make the latest, TikTok. I'm not going to try. But my point is, knowing something about a generation can inform you. It should not be the template. You shouldn't start with marks of a generation as the template for your ministry, but it certainly is a vital tool in your toolbox to be aware of these things. So generations matter. So let me walk through, as I understand it, and some others have, basic generational differences. And I'm going to basically give you what I've gleaned through years of research on this. And then I'm also going to mention Barna, because Barna's done a ton on this, of course. And we're a little bit different in dates. So let me say, and I'll say something about that. Some will vary on dates by 2 or 3 or 4 years. Don't freak out about that. There's not like a hard right turn and a boomer becomes a Gen Xer or whatever. It's a little bit more of a gradual turning, more like turning an aircraft carrier than a Sea-Doo, if you will. Okay. So first of all, the builders. Some people break these up, but I don't. Builders in the silent generation. That's my parents. My mom just went to the Lord to be home with the Lord recently, and my dad's been gone for several years now. But that's basically born between 1925 and 1945. And so I'm going to give you some marks of each generation, some events and advances in their time, and some things about the church in that era. So the marks of my parents' generation, the builders, the silent generation, they were incredibly patriotic. They cannot understand why somebody would kneel during the national anthem or burn a flag or something. They're eminently, well, they remembered World War II, and they're aware of some things and the cost of America and so on. They're institutional, okay? They're about the institutions. Don't question them. They're here for a reason. They're very frugal. My mom and dad were children during the Depression, and they're very private. They're saying what I'm going to give you a saying for each generation. And part of this comes from Howard Strauss's book on Millennials Rising. So I give them credit for that. Question nothing. Question nothing. Events and advances. Well, the American dream was birthed in the post-World War generation when they were becoming young adults and so on. That's when it was born. The Korean War was a big thing. My dad was in military. He didn't fight in the Korean conflict, but he did. He was in Alaska. He was in the service. The space race was a huge thing for that generation. Civil rights and so on. Airplane travel became an advance. It became more normal to actually get on an airplane and fly somewhere. Now, in terms of church, again, institutionalism, Sunday school, church training, church, institutionalism, Sunday school, revival meetings. They got to have those 4-day revivals, programs. Denominations had their greatest era in the late 40s, 50s, and early 60s. That was the day when denominations were king, and you saw the First Baptist Church and the First Methodist Church and the First Presbyterian Church kind of all on the same corner there in the small towns of America, that kind of thing. And so, by the way, some of these builders became leaders. Some of the more innovative ones became leaders of the parachurch movement, which took off in the 50s and 60s and so on.